Good morning. Today I'm going to show you what I think is the easiest way to level a bed on an Anycubic Photon or similar printer. Step 1 of this process is to take your hex key and loosen the screw that holds the build plate to the assembly. You're going to want to be careful if you use the longer end since it has a higher chance of stripping that screw. You want to make sure that the bed is nice and secure to the Z-axis. And basically, you're going to want the build plate to move freely now. Now, other than the hex key, the only other thing you're going to need is this simple piece of paper. We're going to need about a half of it, and we want to be able to slide it in and out from where the LCD screen is. Now, on your Anycubic Photon, we're going to go to Tools, Move Z-Axis, and then we're going to go ahead and home it. You'll need to make sure you press the home button in order to start the leveling process. And I've cleaned up my half sheet of paper here, so we're pretty much good to go. Now, if you're new to resin printing, one thing you might not be aware of is that the UV light that's emitted by these printers will actually break down the LCD screens that they use to mask and create the layers. So the LCD screen on these is basically a consumable part that you'll have to replace over time. If you want to see how I replace the screen on these printers, go ahead and look in the video description below. I'll also put a link up on the screen now. Now, as the Z-axis lowers the build plate even further, I want to make sure I have this piece of paper in here to help protect, and also I'm going to be using this as the primary leveling apparatus. Our printer is now set to home, and I'm still able to move the piece of paper pretty freely. I want to make sure that the build plate is not rocking back and forth, and if it is, I want to lower the build plate slightly by the smallest increment until there's no longer any rocking of that build plate. Once there's no longer any left or right rocking on the build plate and you're able to move this paper freely, we're going to go ahead and make sure that we lock in that setting. So we're going to go ahead and first start by taking our Allen wrench with the short side down, and we're going to go ahead and tighten this screw. I want to make sure that the build plate is still staying flush and squared with the screen, and I'm going to apply pressure slightly with my hand. Once this is tightened all the way, you're going to be about 99.9% of the way there. This is because the screw, when it's tightened, it actually lowers the build plate slightly to get us closer. You also want to be careful then that you're not putting the build plate too close initially, otherwise you could crack the screen. So now I want to adjust this slightly so that way I can pull the piece of paper out, but I'm not able to push it in anymore. I can still push it in slightly, so I'm going to go ahead and lower it by the slightest increment until I can no longer push it in, but I can still pull it out. So now once I've got that, I'm going to go back into the settings for the printer. I'm going to go ahead and set the Z-axis to Z equals 0. And note that Z equals 0 is not the same thing as home. So we're going to go ahead and go home, which will raise the build plate slightly. And as a just double check, whenever the build plate is at home, you should still be able to slide this paper underneath it pretty freely and move it around. So this is what I found as the easiest way to level the bed on a Anycubic Photon or similar printer. As always, these are recommendations. They might not be for everyone, but if you liked the video or you learned something, feel free to like, subscribe to help out the channel, and also check out some of our other videos on different repairs or things that I've done with the 3D printers. So thanks for watching and have a good day.